Servus, Konbanwa. Im letzten Part haben wir Kapitel 9 abgeschlossen. Die Schwester ist zurückgekehrt und hat uns den Krieg erklärt. Und jetzt haben wir Krieg. Und ich würde mal sagen, wir gehen gleich mal in Kapitel 10, The Howling, rein. Howling heißt doch so viel wie heulen, oder? Bin mir gerade nicht sicher, aber ich glaube, es heißt heulen. Wenn man sich nicht sicher ist, einfach nachschauen. Howling. Jap, das Geheul. Dann mal los in die nächste Episode. Kapitel 10. The Howling. This everyday tale started like any other. The morning sun alerted Soshiro that the day of work lay ahead. Selfish Kelly, the gardens needed tending to. In an unkempt garden made for an unhappy Sojiro. Luckily, today was his day off from all his part-time jobs. It was a perfect opportunity to get his hands dirty. There was one problem. However, the mansion's grounds were vast. Not only had the courtyard been left to run wild, but the area around the front door had been isolated too. To tend these problems forcefully, you would have to work on them week in, week out.
よし、まずは地ならしたな。
An ideal world, this task would only take a day, but for its enormity, for the moment Sushiro decided to set foot into the mansion's wilderness and evict the weeds. Wasting none of the early light, he started tackling the ones around the mansion. By his mission, he could clear the forecourt, courtyard, the backyard, then take the small rest.
What is it,彼? さあ、草摘みが趣味ってわけじゃなさそうだけど。
It was just before noon in the sunroom. Alice had come down, book in hand, to find Oko sitting down with her fashion magazine and elegantly sipping tea. Through the window, she could see the crouched figure of Sushiro shuffling by.
朝からやってるみたいよ。起きてカーテンを開けたら、もうあの格好でスパスパやってたから。ついでに焼却炉の掃除も言いつけといたけど、いいでしょ？いいけど、頑張るのね、彼。外は。
Alice finally sat down. Her teacup has been replaced with on the table for her. She poured herself some tea and proceeded to open her book. The two sat passing the time in silence, having happened to have the same idea, a nice relaxing cup of tea in the sunroom. With the evening rolls decided, there was no need for idle chatter. Argo started out the window, immediately turning her gaze to her magazine. Alice was immersed in a book on roommatecraft, occasionally tilting her head up as to recall something. As for Anne's book and Revolution, they passed their teacups to their lips and glanced outside. The two girls and Shiro appeared as if he were an animal in a zoo. Neither was interested in lending a hand. Despite his sluggish movements, he was making a good progress. As Oko's attention turned back to his own room, her eyes met Alice. Alice returned her gaze to a book. Though, moments later she raised her head again. Süß. Clearing her throat, she attempted to focus on reading. It was no surprise that Alice admired social diligence. Not even 30 minutes had passed before it cleared the courtyard of its unsightly weeds. Without stopping once, the mysterious gardener left the courtyard, puffing clouds of white breath. The area has left behind was spotless.
プロかしらね、あいつ。
Alice muttered after scanning over his work. As stalwart, the children worked confidently and ceaselessly. She was impressed like she was watching a scene from the great movie, but before long she grew irked. Irked? Why would he waste energy like that? She thought. Verärgert. Alice looked at the clock.
焼却炉。今から手入れをしたら夕方ね。そっちはもう終わってるわ。朝上から見てたもの。壊されちゃいけないからあれこれ指示出してね。いやー、窓開けて散々となったから部屋が冷えること冷えること。
It was safe to assume Oak had come to a sunroom to escape her cold room. Between barking orders from a window and cleaning in the cold, it was clear who had the harder job.
しずきくん、何か言ってこなかった？言ってたけど、よく聞こえなかったわ。
In other words, his complaints fell on deaf ears. With nothing else to discuss, the two resumed the reading. The ever so tense silence broke by Sushiro entering the house after finishing his cleaning. He stared at the two of them displeased.
あったかそうだね、青崎。
外よりは幾分ね。廊下の気温は外とあまり変わらないけど。それでどうして庭の掃除なんて始めたのよ、宗十郎。
Sushiro's subtle jibe had failed to find his target. He had no chance of winning and so just hung his shoulders in defeat.
今日は本当に寒い。明日あたり雪でも降ってくるだろうから、外の掃除は早くに済ませたかったのに、焼却炉は予定外だったぞ。
He sounded thankful, but his problem was not the additional work. If anything, he was glad to do it. What he did not care for was how nobody had even bothered to lend a hand.
いいじゃない。焼却炉はみんな使うんだから。じゃ、その首相な心がけついでに2階の廊下に掃除機かけといてね。それと裏庭のブナの添え木壊れかけてたでしょ。工具箱はあんたの部屋に置きっぱなしだからそれを使うこと。で、全部終わったら私の部屋に来てくれる？いらないものまとめておくから焼却炉で焼いておいて。
Hence, where she made him clean the incinerator. Cruel, but clever.
それで青崎、君は何をするんだ？
そうね、やることもないし、ギターにでも触ってようかしら。
Die Gitarre könnte auch leicht in den Verbrenner gelangen. Olga thought hard about how to spend her afternoon. Yet, the thought of cleaning did not cross her mind, as always being the case. No, it was not on spite that she did not think to help clean. It was because the word cleaning was not in her vocabulary. So she knew exactly why the mansion was in the state it was in. Still, that did not change the fact that the corridor upstairs was very long. And Orko was not lying about how cold it was inside. It was not much different than outside.
そうか。 あくまで掃除をする気はないんだな、尾崎。
Das wird gleich witzig, sage ich.
まあ掃除はしたいからするけど、こうなんだろう、一緒に住んでる人間をそこまでこき使って両親は痛まないか。それとも割と気づいてはいたけど両親そのものがないのか。
As usual, we might have gone too far. His remarks had hit close to home. Oko closed the magazine and turned to face him. Infuriated, she glared, her sharp blue eyes piercing into him. So she knew he had not said anything unjust, but he always backed down first.
宗十郎、何度も言うようだけど。
One more time.
はい。
He grabbed automatically, striking his back in response to Oko's cold, calm tone.
勘違いはしないで。私たちはあんたを同居させてあげてるんじゃない。
Ihr verlangt Miete von ihm.
これ以上ないって譲歩の末、仕方なく飼ってあげてるだけなんだからね。
Oko did not mind their words. So she nodded in defeat.
そうか、飼ってもらってるのか。
そう、番犬にもならないだろうけど。
Oko responded already tired of the conversation. While Soshi had little room to counter, he still tried.
しかし一方、番犬は間違っても自分の食い縁を入れたり、天津さえ家賃を払ったりしないのも事実であった。
なんか言った？
いや、負け犬の遠吠えを少しばかり。
He raised his hand dismissively, knowing he couldn't win. To Oko's ears, his attempt to self-deprecation and a sound of faceless.
宗十郎、あんた本当に分かってる？
そうだな。君たちがどうあっても掃除をする気がないぐらいはなん。
Oko grinned at the pet's obedience. As long as he knew his place, that was all that mattered to her. She seemed to be extremely satisfied with his response.
余裕あるんだ、しずきくんってば。
Her playful smile darkened as did Sushiro's expression.
青崎、なんだか息ができないんだけど。
Oh Gott! Ich liebe diese VN! Ich liebe sie wirklich! Tut mir leid, ich muss kurz was auf Twitter posten. Ah.
このまま放っておくとそんなことも言ってられなくなるんだけど、試してみる？
He shook his head, his expression growing more and more grim.
懸命ね。私も窒息したいなんて見たくないもの。
The grating sound subsided. So she touched his throat. The collar had suddenly tightened around his neck, returned to its normal size.
気管が塞がれた時の苦しさを知らないんだろう、青崎は。本当に抵抗できなくなるんだぞ、あれは。
Excruciating. Qualvoll.
だからそのための首輪だって言ったでしょ。今まで実践したことなかったし、あんたは相変わらず危機感ないし、ここらで一度しつけておいたの。それより掃除急がないと日が暮れるんじゃないの？
はあ、分かったよ。 結局今日はこうなる星の運びだったんだ。
Tushio left his side when his shoulders slumped in his tail between his legs. Orko watched relief before turning back a scene as if nothing had happened. Alice paid no attention. None of that had anything to do with her. With Tushio gone, the room once again felt silent. As the clock ticked, Alice suddenly stopped flipping through her book.
ねえ、どうして彼を酷使するの？
She asked as though talking to herself. Orko replied without so much as looking up.
別に最後には記憶を消させてもらうんだから楽しかったら困るじゃない。
Obscure ever, but sincere in her own way.
そう。言われてみればそうだったわね。
Alice could not believe she had forgotten about the situation. Silently, she looked up from her book and gazed outside once again. The courtyard through the window reminded her of where she lived a decade ago. Nothing could compare to the beauty of those gardens. But if that was the case, why did the scenery make her feel nostalgic? All Tushio had done was take care of the gardens with the goodness of his own heart. In only half a day he had achieved so much. It was Christmas Eve, and snow had started to fall. The holy night. Its timing was too good, as though it had waited for that day specifically. The cold, bustling main street seemed to bright and vibrant under the layer of frosty white. Reindeer statues illuminated the surroundings. Children danced merely to jingle bells. People walked along the brick road, smiling broadly. These festivities, however, had not reached the mansion on the hill. Silence enveloped the isolated building. The shadow of the snow-covered woodland grew longer, beckoning in the darkness. People returned to the warmth of their homes, knowing a bitter night lay ahead. Something had been amiss in the mansion all day. Perhaps it was the calm before the storm. 2 days had passed since Toko Osaki had revealed herself. Orko and Alice spent more and more time locked in their rooms. Mealtimes had gone noticeably quieter. With the roles decided, they were too busy with all their own jobs to worry about each other. On this day, the two had been relaxing in the drawing room since morning. The mood was calm. Well, mostly at least. Tushio was fretting that tonight would be the same.
雪が明日ならよかったのに。
He emptied her towards the girls on the sofa, despite knowing they would be ignored. Wherever the snow fell today, tomorrow not at all, it did not affect them. The snow just meant a white Christmas. Orko remained silent. She wasn't ignoring him per se, she just had other things on her mind. Tushio knew this, but cast a lonely glance around the sunroom. The courtyard had been cleaned only a few days ago, was hidden by a layer of white. The falling snow would stop every so often, but then resume again, as a teasing Sojiro. By the next morning, the courtyard would be a winter wonderland. Orko and Alice sipped tea in effort to fight the cold. In fact, it was all they were doing.
そういえば、トウコさんの髪の色は青崎より濃かったね。あんな綺麗な赤毛は初めて見た。短くしてるのはもったいなかったな。
Ja, das stimmt. Toko schaut mit langen Haaren besser aus. Wie sie in Lord Emeloy Casefalls ausschaut oder wie in, nein, wie sie in Guard of Sinners ausschaut. Wie ist das in Casefalls aus? Ich habe gerade an Guard of Sinners das dann gedacht. Toko Aosaki. Giancarlo Kyoke hat sie lange Haare. In Fate Extra hat sie kurze blaue Haare. In Guard of Sinners hat sie auch lange Haare, okay. Da habe ich mich richtig geändert. Das sind sogar die längsten Haare, glaube ich. I've never seen such a beautiful red. So Chiro rambled on, not expecting a response. However,
短かったって姉貴の髪が？
Aoko's expression went from nonchalant to its usual sharpness.
それどういうこと？短くしてるって髪の毛のことよね。
ああ、アリスより短かったけど、それがどうしたんだ？
別に、あの人前は私より長かったってだけ。そう、あの髪を切ったのね、姉貴は。
Aoko spoke in a grave tone, showing slight interest. Alice turned to Sojiro.
普通じゃないな。髪を切ったぐらいでどうしたんだ一体。トウコさんの髪が短いと青崎が困るのか？
まあその通りだけど。いいわ、どうせ夜まで暇だし説明ぐらいはしてあげる。あんたがそんなこと言わなければ未知数のままトウコと戦う羽目になっただろうし。
Connolly glanced at Alice's expression. Servus Timothy, suggesting she was treating her. She was also likely seeking approval. Alice remained stoic as ever, her expression showing neither approval nor disapproval. Wie geht's?
簡単に言うと、魔術師にとっては髪の毛も武器ってことよ。
Yep. Wie wir zum Beispiel in Fate Zero gesehen haben oder in Fate Stay Night. Mit dem, was Ilya und Iris viel aus ihren Haaren machen können. Oder was wir in Lord Emeloy Case Files gesehen haben, wie Wavers sich mit seinen Haaren verteidigt hat.
昔から人間の髪や目は魔術の材料になりやすいの。女の場合はことさらにね。瞳の色は多いほどいいし、髪も長いほど質がいい。
Mir ist auch relativ gut.
髪の毛は自身と同一視しやすいし、長い年月をかけて育てられる原始的で強力な原料と思ってくれていいわ。私が髪を伸ばしてるのはまあそういうこと。手入れが大変なんだけど、そこは女だから半分趣味みたいなもんよね。
Sushiro glanced furtively at Alice, wondering if the same held true for her. Maybe Alice had cut it because it was a hassle to maintain. It sounds stupid, but then again, this was Alice, so Sushiro nodded to himself.
じゃあ青崎としてはいいことじゃないか。トウコさんの髪短いんだから。
それがここに来る前に使い切ったものならいいんだけど、伸ばした髪にはいろいろと使い道があるのよ。私は瞬間的な術の強化にしか使えないけど、姉貴だったら恒久的な術の補佐に使うはず。年月と想念を蓄えた髪は魔術師の分身とも言える。そういったものをね、死んじゃった犬だの猫だのを反言させるときに与えると、術者に服従する使い魔が出来上がるの。生前魔力のなかった使い魔。例えば猫とか犬ね。これらは術者の髪を取り込んで独自の魔術回路を申請することで全く違う生き物、猫の魔術師になるってこと。例えば人語を介したり人間に化けてみたりって。行動原理も変わってしまって、大抵は術者に似通った性格になるわ。そうよね、アリス。
The last words came with a mocking smile. Alice silently ignored it.
じゃあ トウコさんにはアリスのみたいな使い魔がいると。
そう見るのが妥当でしょうね。姉貴は20年以上伸ばし続けた髪と引き換えに強力な使い魔を用意したってことよ。
Wow. The fight at the amusement park. Just the thought of Alice Grange releasing flat snark set a shiver down Suju's spine. The oil of the moon had been a unique familiar out of this world.
ほら、そこ心配しない。三崎町をぶっ壊す規模の使い魔なんてありっこないから。確かに長く歴史のある紙を使用するほど強力な使い魔が出来上がる。けど紙を使った魔術師はそれまで溜め込んできた山中のうちの一つを初めからやり直さないといけない。切った紙はまた伸ばさないといけないでしょ。使い魔を作るのは簡単だけど、そう多く従えないのはそういうことなの。
As Doug spoke, her mood visibly improved, as though she had made a breakthrough.
犬とか猫か。
Tilting his head to the side, he could not imagine a world where dogs and cats were so powerful.
変ね。トウコさんは人魚師よ。使い魔を作って自分のレベルを下げるのはどうなのかしら。
協力者がいないだけでしょ。青崎のお家騒動に人の手を借りたくないから自分だけで全部やるつもりなのよ。あ、もしかして遊園地の人形って姉貴の紙で作られたんじゃないだろうな。
確かに話に聞いた限りだと特注品ね。呪いによる永久期間、両手のギミック、フィンの一撃、執念深さ。トウコ
けど何よアリス。
Huh.
あの人は人形に自己を投影するような人じゃないわ。完璧な偽物なら許すけど、偽物に過ぎない偽物は容赦なく壊してきた。青子から見てその特注人形はトウコさんと同じ力量を持っていた。
まさか遠く及ばないわよあんなの。
ならトウコさんの髪とあの人形は別件よ。あの人が自分の魔力を分け与えたほどの使い魔があと一体はいると見るべきね。
専門家としての意見。つまりその使い魔は姉貴より強い。
Das wäre blöd.
そうでないと意味がないわ。人手が足りないというのもあるでしょうけど、だって私たちは2人、彼女は1人だもの。
同時制圧も想定済みってわけ。なるほどね。その場合どっちが強い方を引き当てても恨みっこなしよアリス。ま、こと使いまであんたが遅れを取るとは思えないけど。
Liz had never been defeated by a familiar. She sighed at Aoko's overconfidence.
青子、たとえ20年間の蓄えを付与したとしても、その器が小動物では限度があるわ。あのトウコさんが切り札になる使い魔を用意したのなら。
よしてよ。いくらなんでも姉貴はそこまで悪趣味じゃないわ。
Aoko and Alice stared at each other. The conversation returned to the drawing room, but the subject matter was not for the faint of heart.
そうね。けれど人間を追い詰めるのに最も効果的な相手は、いや、トウコさんが死者を亡者にしていなくてもそれと同格の相手がいるぐらいは覚悟しておいて。
はいはい、分かったわよ。確かに天才ってやつは空気読めないから、どんな生き物の死体を用意してきても驚かないわ。
Could nodded reluctantly at Alice's directness. Needless to say, Sojiro was completely lost.
そのよくわからないけど、なんで青崎たちは死んでるってことに固執するんだ。生きてるものじゃダメなのか。
それは使い魔じゃなくて協力者でしょ。使い魔は基本術者なくしては生きられないものにしないと。それでいて優れた意志を持ち、 術者の資格や盲点を補える知性もある。それが一流の使い魔の条件よ。正直な話、それだけ都合のいいやつは死から作り直すしかないってわけ。
Complete obedient and capable of compassing for their mage's weakness, Sushiro felt that familiar was little different than himself.
さて、姉貴は昔からルーン使いだったから戦術は予測できる。問題の切り札もどうやら使い魔らしい。自動人形もさすがにこの前で使い切っただろうし。
Bezweifle ich irgendwie. Gus spoke directly to Alice, looking at for confirmation. Alice noted agreement.
じゃあ予定通り今日で終わりにしよう。この1ヶ月好き放題やられた借りギッタンギッタンにしてあのバカ姉貴に返してやる。
Orko clenched teeth and balled her fist. It seems like nothing more than simply revelry. In fact, that's probably all it was. Looking at Orko, Sushiro let out a sigh of relief. With what happened with Toko, and now they react to a visit, their tones had been deathly tense. For now, though, Orko seemed so much calmer. He took a comfort in the thought that perhaps the sister would just bury the headshot. Even if Orko and Toko were not sisters, he would not want to see what would happen if they fought. The hands of the clock turned gently. The approaching judgment night, a merciless silence, would soon come to mock Sushiro's complacency. As night appeared, two things vanished. The first was the whimsical snowfall. The second was the lights of the mansion on the top of the hill. Aoko and Alice were nowhere to be seen. Only Sojiro remained. It was the night of Christmas Eve. Though Aoko and Alice had yet to find Toko, they knew everything would be concluded over the course of this day and the next. Christmas comes by once a year. It was a singular time for endings and new beginnings. In Japan, the modern day holiday dated back to only about 100 years and celebrated Christ's birth only in name with all its later day trappings. It was neither a pure homage nor a corruption of the festival that inspired it. Regardless, there was a significant increase in the land's mana during festivals. Such child distortion were a boon to the Meshafts, be it creative or destructive. Toko Aosaki fought to destroy the local sigils, which gathered and properly cycled the magical energy to the land and its people. Shushu was able to gather that much from Aoko and Alice's conversation. Toko had already been climbed to 3 sigils. Only 2 remained. Any further loss would signal Aoko and Alice's defeat. In order to protect the remaining ones, they had to split up. Aoko lacked power, so she would need to borrow a ploy from Alice and head to the Tokawa Sigil. Lass ich der Tokawa Sigil ist beeinflusst wegen den Kawa, which boasted the greatest local energy supply. Alice would go fully equipped to the sigil in Yashirogi. Free from the constraints of the civilized society. Mage's is most powerful at midnight. The young witch and the apprentice mage wished each other luck before leaving the mansion. It was almost 10 at night. After the girls set out, the first 2 hours passed quickly. When Naoko was ready to head off, Tsuchiro walked with her to the foyer. Neither had spoken a word to each other. She had departed without showing any sign of fear. It was difficult to tell Whether she did not want to get him involved, or whether she did not see him a worthy ally in combat. The thought stuck with him. He let out a long sigh. Not out of the dejection or frustration, it was a mechanical, emotionless breath. He sat on the near frozen floor, staring vacantly up to the skylight. Moonlight peeked through the clouds. He imagined the moonlight bouncing off the town's poverty blanket, illuminating the night. But he would not find himself downtown. Watching from the sidelines was his role to begin with. His roommates and he lived worlds apart. He could not keep up with them, and he did not show the same kind of will. He would remain on the sidelines. However,
そうか。この手が必要な時はもうないのか。
so she looked up at the moon. Somewhere deep inside he felt a trickle of sadness. Wild and wide and clothed in darkness, the park seemed like a forgotten memory. Not a soul was inside. The night felt far more enigmatic than usual. Yet the air was clean enough to drink. Though only a sliver of moonlight peered through the clouds, it lit up the entire world. In those moments, a young girl's footsteps echoed, trampling the still wild silence under midnight's sun. The pale moon illuminated the inky blue sky. Only a few streetlights and incongruous phone booth betrayed signs of civilization. A girl appeared, dressed in black. Against the snowy landscape, the figure of Alice Kuranji was unmistakable. Pure black, deeper than the night, were her overcoat, gloves, and had even had hair and eyes. Nothing stirred for a time. Not Alice, nor the white scenery. The world was still painting of a snowy field. Only time moved gradually, darkening the lights in the park and eventually the nearby homes as well. Yashirogi was a more modern and developed town than Misaki. Though the park was located in the center of a town, it had become a blind spot. It had been overlooked by the developers and carried no commercial value. A few houses encircled the park, the streetlights turned off at midnight. It was a white night, people, even machines were fast asleep.
私が先なのね。
Alice whispered, watching the streetlights slowly fade. She thought she heard a dog howling in the distance. Perhaps it was howling at the moon. The howl reached deeper into the night than expected. A wolf, maybe? The phone rang. It was perhaps the first time it hung since Toshiro moved into the mansion. Hastily, he picked up the receiver and brought it to his ear. He had nothing. He felt he had to say something but could not think what. Maybe something like, "Hello, Kuranji Resistance?" Or maybe, "You've reached the Osaki Resistance?" But it was deep before the voice, as light as air, came through the receiver. I have a bad feeling about this.
しずき
Sushiro could barely hear the voice, but it was definitely Alice.
そうだけど、アリス。
No response. The silence was profound as the night. But for the sound of static from the receiver, after a long pause, Alice finally spoke.
青子は
いや、まだ帰ってないけど。
With a click, the call ended. So she wondered if she had something to say, but could not respond in time. Slowly they advanced, carving through the fresh snow. There were so many. Where'd they all come from? Those the feral dogs sneered at Alice, their eyes trained on her. The snow clung to the beast's mangy fur. Their clenched fangs and bloodshot eyes had barely rained hunger that might burst forth like lightning at any moment. They yearned to taste the warm flesh and satiate their empty bellies. To them the girl in black stood like a lighthouse on the stormy sea. She watched them, disinterested. It appeared that Yashirogi's signal was the key target tonight, not Tokawa's, where Oko had gone. Alice had always been unflappable, and the child's play before her was suddenly about to change that. Her main aim was not the dogs surrounding her, but a low mage behind them. Toko Aosaki.
ひどい趣味。ここ数年で品が落ちたの。まあ、それならそれで嬉しいけど。これが地金なら、青崎との付き合いもいよいよ白紙に戻せるわ。
Toko laughed at a acerbic taunt.
いやいや、これは不可抗力でね。安心しろアリス。間違っても私の趣味じゃない。
Crunching through the fallen snow, Toko slowly came into view. She wore a moss green coat that contrasted sharply with Alice's garb. A silk scarf warmed her neck. She stood tall, her hair short, striking a more valiant posture than any young man. After all, the two standing here needed to be less like the shining moon and more like the darkness surrounding it. The barking abated. Like servants that rolled curt, they averted their eyes from the ruler, lest their eyes and hearts be plucked out.
久しぶりだね、アリス。
瞳子さんもお元気そうで。
They stood about 12 feet apart. No love had been lost between them. Just two enemies one who was to be victorious and one who was to fall.
さて、どうしようかアリス。積もる話もある。君の近況にも興味がある。そもそも今回の件についていろいろと説明したくてたまらない。5分ほど時間を割いても構わないか？
お断りよ。あなたと5分も話をしていたら、その隙に内臓まで売却されそう。
The following events unfolded quickly. Boldly without a second's thought, Alice pulled out a cat's bell from the seam of her mantle and dropped it. Diddle, diddle. The beginning of Alice Guanchi's spacecraft, the start of a night of fairy tales. Orko favored a quick draw approach, like something from a western. However, Alice preferred sleight of hand. She used her target's blind spots against them, ending the game before they knew it had begun. The bell fell like a coin into a fountain. Then, as it was about to strike the ground, it shattered, disappearing without a trace.
ルーン。
ああ、1日かけて公園中に刻ませてもらった。この公園の道はレンガだからね。 手間こそかかったが簡単な仕事だった。周りの森まで見てざっと400平米のキャンバスだ。面白いだろ。今私たちは30万字以上のルーンの上にいる。
Ich glaube, Alice ist im Nachteil. Swallowing hard, Alice took a step back. Tucker carved runes all over the ground. Even in the area, little reacted to alone. There was the pressing amount of them. Had she truly carved them into the whole park? Alice did not react with surprise, she simply narrowed her eyes. She could see how it would have taken the whole day. It was no wonder the little banquet of the night was destroyed by the skin of the sun. Still something baffled Alice.
一体どうやって隠していたの？
There were just so many. What kind of treasure could do that?
ああ、ちょっと特別性。このルーンね、普段は確定していないんだ。こうしている今も変形している。パッと見はただの傷跡。それが強い魔力に触れると元の形に立ち戻る。
Ich hoffe, Alice
ル
überlebt.
ーンとでも言おうかな。そんなわけで、いかなる夜の深さをもってしても、この太陽は没しない。この
She spoke modestly, but Alice could not imagine the amount of persistence, technique and skill it must have taken. And it only took a day. Even 10 mages would have trouble producing so many sophisticated runes in that time. Moreover, those runes were made using unknown techniques the association had not approved.
負け惜しみだけど、私みたいな小娘一人に大人げないわね、瞳子さん。
バカを言うな。君を小娘だなんて一度も思ったことはないよ。まあ、私好みの体だと眠めつけることはあったがね。
It happened in the blink of an eye. Alice cut off Tuco's snide remarks with a deadly stare. The left eye of a dark-clad girl changed in color to an almost ruby. The speed of incantation was phenomenal. Alice's mystic eyes of enthralling snare Tuco. Enthralling? Ah, fesselnd, packend, faszinierend. Begeistern, bezaubern, fesseln, verzaubernd. She had been the one to quite literally be taken captive by the girl's stare. Draco tried to raise her arm, but could not even move a finger. Alice's mystic eyes commanded absolute control, with no room for resistance. Only a person's internal organs were allowed the freedom to move. Since the organs still functioned, it was more precise to say that her eyes forbid the target from acting. Alice played with her hand with exquisite timing. It was the speed of her eyes that had given her an edge. The deftness with which she wove her spells to exploit the briefest vulnerability that is what made Alice into a different caliber to other mages like Aoko. The witch who lived hidden in the modern era was more seasoned in magical battles than Toko Saki.
だが残念。ディドルディドルが響かないのでは魔眼のアクロスティック化はできないようだな。惜しいね。あの月目のプロエキシャーならこれで私の方はお手上げだったろうが。
The formation holding Toko began to distort. In the blink of an eye, the mage had bested Alice's mystic eyes. Alice's black eyes were fluttering in the wind. She turned so she was not facing Toko head on the mage had recovered through her own mystic eyes. At the root of Toko's mystic eyes was a spell of mesmerize. Most effective when facing their prey, such eyes could mind check a tire's awareness. It was difficult to resist head-on. However, its effect was greatly diminished if the tire was not facing the eyes directly, even if it was within range. Moreover, the girl was the last bitch of her lineage, who commanded a great number of fairy tales. Against mystic eyes that projected their effects, simply turning one's body was enough to repel half of the magical energy. Like Alice's eyes, Toko could also disable actions. Alice had escaped by the skin of her teeth. The damage she would suffered was white of a twig to a forest. She just had to let the energy pass through. In an instant, a sonic chill ran through Alice's body. Irgendwie erinnert mich das gerade irgendwie an einen Kampf zwischen Trilogias. This was a problem. The touch of death ran upon her spine. She glared at the mage before, as blue rubber balls flowed out from beneath her overcoat. The stare-off grew more intense. Alice glared harder, resting Toko's mystic eyes with her own. Losing was not an option. In terms of raw magical energy, Alice's grunting mystic eyes were more powerful and advanced than Toko's. Surely nobody could beat her. Ich frag mich, wie das im Anime dargestellt werden wird. And yet, her unfiltered stock of magical energy, stifled by old-fashioned values, was no match for Toko's madness. Deeper within her eyes, somehow the eyes revealed a sealed power. Inside the crispy edge of the mage's left iris was a bottomless pit, a clawing cube. Alice winced in pain. The binding grew in number. So many mystic eyes, thousand perhaps, and all fixated on Alice. Fun Fact: Dieser Bildschirm ist eine FGO-Anspielung. Ich habe es nicht finally erreicht. Die nächste Anspielung von FGO. Weil ich glaube, das ist der Skill-Seal-Effekt in Fake Order. Pressure, so much pressure. Endless, and Alice knew it. She saw, incredulously, she saw eyes growing within eyes. Took and placed opposing mirrors inside her eyes, resulting in an infinite glare. It was the act of a mad woman, creating mystic eyes with mystic eyes. She could even control the resulting chaos caused by all the copies. Insanity knew no bounds. No mage in her right mind would mass produce so many mystic, the last escape humankind so indescribably.
やれやれ、これもお気に召さないか。私なりにマインスターの真似事をしてみたつもりなんだが。
Meinst der?
うまくできているだろう。君の悪路のように希少な神秘で現実をねじ曲げるのではなく、量産した神秘で現実をねじ伏せる。物自体はただの魔眼だが、その段数には果てがない。相手がどれほどの魔力抵抗を持っていようと、それ以上の魔力で拘束するだけのものだ。
She wielded power without limit to disable an opponent. Once one was caught in them, one was chained to the concept of infinity. Projection type Ice had a fatal flaw. The firepower formula were insignificant compared to the greater artillery of incanted spells, but Tuko had torn down the conventional wisdom with brute strength. If the gun was a pea shooter, she simply needed to bring more guns. A 9mm bullet could never destroy a fortress unless one threw a fortress mass of bullets at it. The principle was brutally simple, but in the world of Magecraft, the concept inside of supremacy, Tuka created the perfect weapon. The target would be bound until she closed her eyes. In theory, at least. The effects were infinite. No but special energy could ever overcome it, so it was utterly futile to resist using magical energy. Of course, one way to encounter it would be to stay out of Tuko's line of sight to begin with. The standard tactic against Mystic Eyes was to defeat the user before they were aware of you. There was, however, another way. It was simpler than one might think.
ともあれ、これで罪だ。何かい？
Alice could no longer see her enemy. Tuko's infinite eyes had bound her. All she could make out was sliver of moonlight, and a blue streak tracing its way towards her.
結構悔いのない人生で羨ましい。
She drew a rune in the air, unleashing a shockwave to tear flesh asunder. The gust became blades of air that shredded Alice's overcoat and minced. Blue feathers flittered all around. Tuko felt something behind her and turned. 5 cat-shaped bells were thrown at her feet. And shattered as they shattered to pieces. Standing before her was completely unharmed Alice Kuranji.
そよ風みたいなルーンね。瞳子さん、本当に鈍った？
うつせみか。術者の身代わりになるプロイの話は聞いてなかったな。
ええ。1年のうち365日は役立たずで、どうしてあんなのが古参なのか私も疑問だけど。
As for responding to Alice's words, a bird began chirping frantically. Yeah, Robin! As unnumerous sacrifice. Who killed Cock Robin? Echoed into the night, sang out of tune.
ああ、そんな歌もあったな。だがあれは一度に1回しか殺されない。2度目はないし、あったとしても。
The birds walked a very unberg-like death throw. From behind Alice, the blue robin fell from its tree, a victim of Tuko's mystic eyes.
本当に使えない。
さて、ではやり直しだ。あとも使えている。これで終わりにしよう、アリス。どのみち、この公園では手がないだろう。
そうでもないわ。確かに今の私にあなたの魔眼は破れない。けれど Build up with wood and clay, wood and clay, wood and clay, build it up with wood and clay, my fair lady.
The song came from the depths of the earth, stirring a mighty quake to mark the birth of something gargantum. Jim. Told you to throw Alice into infinite hell before whatever that was could be completed, but she was far too late.
Wood and clay will wash away, falling down, falling down.
Fair lady. The ground burst to life. A finger, then another, and another, all rising up like towers. Earth, snow, and brick knitted together, manifesting a giant stone golem.
そんなバカな話があるか。なぜこいつが出てきやがる。
Tuk was so angry and confused she could barely gather her thoughts. The bridge giant, the monster from Mainster's fairy tales, rose from the ground, ruining Tuku's plan. The giant was extremely powerful but could only be summoned under one condition. It must be proximity to a natural river. That was the monster's one and only condition. But this time was nowhere near one. And on top of that, it was rising up directly between Toko and Alice mid-battle.
あら、あるでしょう、すぐそこに。川と呼ぶには小さな、すぐに消えてしまうものだけど。
Toko lowered her gaze. She was standing in a puddle of water. The scared red mage was dumbfounded. The scarred red mage was dumbfounded. That was why Alice had used Diddle Diddle before. When the bells could replenish, they were vulnerable to Alice. And she had spent 5, throwing an intentional line for the sun runes to destroy. From there,
雪解けの流水か。
schon netter Plus. The arms of Tame's troll rose up from the stone paving. Their monster torso alone surpassed 80 feet. Its form was made entirely of stone. Previously, she had created one using the trees of her forest. However, Toku knew instantly the monster before her was at least twice as powerful.
止まれ。
She unleashed her stacked mystic eyes. They were meaningless at this stage. They had no effect on the giant. As mystic eyes can be counted in two ways. The first is to hide oneself from the view of the mage. That was a standard response. The other way was, however, devilishly simple, yet 100% effective. Effect is less of a way and more of a fact. Mystic eyes curse the tire by focusing on them. However, what if the tire was too large to focus on entirely? The answer was, one could barely stop a single arm. The giant, unfazed, raised its right arm and swung it down onto the ground, destroying thousands of runes. The demolished stones were then absorbed into its arm, adding to its mess. As the mage had said before, no matter how deep the night, these little suns won't set. While the suns might not set, they could be crushed under the bulk of a giant's hand. The victor of the battle was decided. Tokuo Osaki closed her eyes and prepared to escape. The stray golems began to whine, fearful of the hulking figure before them.
参ったな。私ではマインスターには勝てなかったか。まあ、そのあたりは今後の課題としよう。
呆れた。逃げられると思っているの？ どこ
まさかそこまで鈍ってはいないよアリス。第一逃げるとしたらそれは私の方じゃないからね。
There was no hint of bravado in Toko's tone. Even in the face of the tactics, she had no means of harming. Her confidence was unshakable. The reason being,
ま、前座は終わりだ。来い、ベオ。
this was no longer a battle of skill. A fight for survival had begun. Snap went Toko's fingers. In response, a beautiful high-pitched melody floated up toward the moon. It showed all around them. The spiral drawl dragged up an ancient primal memories. Its source emerged from the shadows and lay next to the mage. Meisterschön. Alice's lip trembled faintly. Not from fear, but with admiration. Once she recognized this creature before her. It was a majestic golden beast. Beyond the domain of both magical and perspective simply divine. It was a life that should have passed from a world with the age of gods. A muscle derived from human wisdom, preserved by thousands of generations of hidden tradition. A recreation of a miracle that once freely walked the earth. The natural enemy of magecraft, able to crush it with ease. Quiet resignation settled over Alice's face. The golden beast charged. The type you didn't even have a chance to admit defeat. She could hear the beast breathing in her ear. It seemed she'd be unconscious for a short time. Alice opened her eyes and took a deep breath. Each chord sent pain shooting through her body. Blood rose from the pit of her stomach as she spat onto the cold ground. When the vision returned, she was able to make out the distant sky, falling snow, and the golden wolf. The wolf panted. It stared at Alice, saliva dripping from his mouth onto her cheek. Razor-sharp fangs lined its jaws. Its fur was glossier than that of any animal she had ever seen. Brutal knife-like claws protrude from its massive bloody-stained paws. And yet it did not smell like a beast. Surely the presence of such a noble creature, a human, would feel like a lesser animal. The battle between Alice and the wolves was over before it had begun. After destroying the troll, it baptized Alice with its wicked claws, giving her no chance to escape. Its sideswipe had torn into her abdomen like a sword, carving through her clothes and flesh all the way to her heart. Even so, not once did Alice make a sound. The wolf had a pint and stared at her face. Her limbs felt ready to break at any moment. That was the situation she found herself in. Now fully conscious, Alice stared at the enemy through pained eyes. She felt no fear, only cold reality sinking in. Sensing Alice's demeanor, the wolf suddenly paused, its paw still raised. They looked into each other's eyes.
そんなに血が出てるのに痛くないんだ。
The wolf's voice came out of surprise, but there was no doubt it had spoken.
それとも痛いのは平気なのかな。
The wolf's voice sounded innocent, almost childlike. In complete contrast to what had happened up to that point, the wolf smiled.
どっちにしろ我慢強いんだね。お姉。
The wolf opened the mouth wide and clamped its jaws around Alice's neck.
ベオ
Toko's tongue was sharper than the wolf's fangs. The wolf rose.
トウコさん。
He let go and slowly turned his head towards the voice.
とどめは刺すなと言ったろ。余計な仕事を増やす気か、バカも。
それはそれで楽しいのに。ああ、退屈。話に聞いた橋の巨人も結局は他の生き物と一緒だったし。
The wolf backed away from Alice, as was no longer interested in his prey. To Golden Beast, she was little more than an old chew toy.
なんだ、もう意識が戻ったのか。心もタフなら体も大概だな。骨まで砕いてその程度の出血とは。
Barely clinging to her life, Alice stared at Toko, but not a stare of hatred in defeat, but one of disbelief. Alice simply wondered why Toko had brought us such a beast.
ああ、紹介が遅れたな。彼はおそらく地上で現存している最後の人狼だ。北欧の奥地に生きる彼らの一族の中に現れた生粋の原種だよ。見ての通り、先祖返りなんて言葉じゃ表せない黄金の神秘でね。名前がなかったんで分かりやすくベオウルフと呼んでいる。
ベオウルフ。
Alice's face was perplexed, even though she had wavered when she was disemboweled. Beowulf, the name of the heroic giant slayer from Danish legend. It came from Old English and a combination of honeybee and the wild beast, a bee in other words.
なんでそんなちぐはぐな名前を。
いや、可愛いからに決まってるだろ。
Perhaps because of the name, or because of the golden beast itself. Fighting the pain, Alice started to read Toko. In this respect, she was worse than Aoko.
ついでに説明しておくと、周りの犬どもはベオが勝手に呼び寄せたものだ。私自身、マインスターの娘がただの畜生に傷つけられるとは思ってはいないよ。今のところはね。
Toko's mouth twisted into a grin. Not the warmth of Sushiro's saw, but the merciless smile of a victor that plays to a loser. The disdain in Alice's eyes turned to anger. The golden mystic. How could Toko even brought such a creature into the human world?
何？需要と供給だよ。過疎化は人間だけの問題じゃない。彼らもいい加減、昔ながらの生活には限界が来たらしくてね。話し合いの末、高額で私が買い取った。
Praktisch als eine Art Sklave, oder?
と言っても、あくまで里から出すだけの権利だがね。お察しの通り、私の髪はベオとの契約に使い切った。自分の髪を使って分身を作るより、強大な怪物を縛り付けた方がよっぽど健全。
While she was talking, Toko noticed something strange. An unusual sound. a preternatural sound that tore at the mind. A sound that should not have existed. It was coming from the girl's open abdomen.
もう復元が始まったか。いや、というより。
何この匂い。トウコさん、なんかワクワクすること起きてない？
Kuras Beowulf moved closer, like a puppy examining a new toy.
見るな、あっちに行っていろベオ。正気を失っても知らんぞ。
Took a shoot the mother away with her hand. Beowulf allowed his head meekly and withdraw.
教育方針を間違ったかな。まったく、乙女の腹を見ようなんて恥を知れん恥を。
トウコさんだって見てるじゃない。
バカ。私は乙女だからいいんだ。
If Oak had been here, she would have blasted them away for their imprudence, just as she did against Blood Snark.
しかしむごいな。
Was macht Toko da?
こんなになるまで放っておくとは。マインスターは人の親とは言えまいよ。
With a gloved hand, Toko ran her fingers along a wound on Ella's abdomen. A flash of pain went through Ella's body. Alice had heard her screams, but she finally let out a long breath. She turned her face away in pain or shame.
ほら、もう肌も復元している。骨格、血管はおろか、内臓にまで施されたおびただしいまでの刻印だ。生後、肉体に魔術回路を付加することは諸刃の剣だ。呪文と自分を一体化させることにより栄唱の手間を省き、術者に多大な利点をもたらす魔術刻印。
Und der Nachteil?
しかし、それは多ければ多いほど苦痛を伴う。青崎の刻印は腕一本分。まあ、君に比べれば少ない方だな。
The magic trust Toko referred to the inheritance of the Osaki family passed down by the ancestors. They can only be inherited. Oak had received the ones that were meant for Toko.
しかし、それも良し悪しだな。右腕に刻印をした青子の痛みは、残る人間の体と神秘となった右腕とが反発する程度だ。通常の肉体が右腕を否定し、末梢にかかる痛み。精神的にも肉体的にも生じる幻痛は、現在にも似て拭い去ることはできない。だが、ここまで来ると痛みも何もあるまい。そもそも生きている実感はあるのか？自分が人間だとまだ信じている？ああ、本当に。お互い非凡な死を持つと苦労するね、アリス。
Wer war denn Lehrer? Weil ich hab's, wo ich es schon habe, war der Großvater ja nicht dein Lehrer, weil er dich ja verstoßen hat gegen Aoko. Toko took Ella's body in her arms. The wounds from Beowulf had mostly healed. Even so, her breath was fuller, like due to the pain. So she gently hit the girl's face in the hand.
マインスターには恩がある。それに、私の相手はあくまで青子一人だ。
Okay. Das habe ich nicht erwartet. Weil, soweit ich weiß, war das ist keine Erinnerung, also hier ist keine Kussszene oder sowas erwartet. Und ich hatte irgendeine Kussszene zwischen Aoko und Sojiro erwartet und nicht zwischen Alice und Toko. Alice longs pinned for oxygen. Toko pressed her lips to hers. The young girl wriggled, trying to escape, but Toko held her firmly. Beneath the blue moon, the two remained frozen. Then the sound of swallowing. Something solid slid down Alice's throat. With that more, she went limp and her arm fell. After setting Alice down on her side, Toko stood up.
今のは七かまどに手を加えた私の特製品だ。そう簡単に解毒はできない。魔力を流せば体の中で暴発する仕組みになっているから気をつけなさい。
Blend of Rowan?
ああ、口移しは私の趣味だから特に気にすることはないよ。
Da bei ein paar Buchstaben vergessen. Bei den You are the Mouth. As she desperately clung to conscious, Alice looked up at Toko from the ground. The disagrees. The skillful kiss was greater than the pain she felt in her body. Toko began to walking away, her golden wolf tower. Eva looked back to see Alice's hateful glare.
そうそう、一つ言い忘れていた。ベオが呼び寄せた野犬たちだけどね。公園の外にまだ山ほどいるんだが、困ったことに彼らは本来何を口にするべきかを思い出している。ベオの野生に刺激されたんだろう。獣はより強い獣に従うものだからな。
In a roundabout way, Toko had read Alice her last rites. In nature was common for the weak. They could no longer move to offer their bodies up to feed the strong.
じゃあ、私は行くよ。歩くことも満足にできないだろうが、無事に帰れるといいね。
With a twisted grin, the mage headed to the darkness. As the footsteps faded, the sound of the rolls grew louder. Alice could still barely focus on her eyes. The hounds looked like monsters out of a picture book. Alice took a deep breath, her consciousness slipping away. The sky was blue, the trees were tall, the park was a graveyard. In the corner of her eye, though, Alice could just about make out a solitary phone booth. The phone rang. It was the second time she had heard his voice echo through the cold foyer. A few minutes had passed as Alice called. He wondered what she could want this time. The call persisted, determining not to leave him to his thoughts.
はい、クオンジですが。
あら、その声は宗十郎君?
A cheery voice, Sochiro had been expecting Alice. It was Toko Awasaki. Somehow Sochiro was not surprised.
そうですけど、トウコさん、暇なんですか?
He checked the time. He thought it was about midnight by now. No matter what the situation, Sochiro always kept his cool. You see, Toko tried to suppress a laugh. After taking a while to compose herself, she started talking again.
ごめんなさい。ちょっとツボ入っちゃったみたい。で、質問の開始ね。これがあんまり暇じゃないな。私も今日で終わらせる予定だから忙しいんだ。
偶然ですね。青崎もそんなことを言ってました。
やっぱりそうね。こういう時は本当に姉妹だなって思うわ。ところで、青崎はやめてって言ったでしょ。私も青崎だからくすぐったいのよね。そう言われるの。
So she realized she was probably right. Awasaki words make more sense
まあ
now.
そんなわけだから長話をする気はないんだ。単刀直入に聞くけど。
It always sounded like he was worried about her sister's whereabouts. But cold-headed Sochiro had not forgotten Toko was their enemy. He broke Alice's mind. He decided to be evasive.
さあなんて答えてほしいんですか瞳子さんとしては。
The question shifted the tone of the conversation drastically. Sushi could hear Toko muttering to herself in annoyance. Sushi was proving more quick-witted than she had anticipated. A change of attack was required.
そうね。君には何も答えてほしくないっていうのが正解かな。第一印象で君を無視するのは良くない気がしてたけど、やっぱり私は宗十郎君を手にかけたくはないみたい。君はこのまま無関係でいてちょうだいね。
Die hat echt einen Namen gefasst, Tsuchiro. Her warning came from her heart. Tsuchiro responded flatly once again, not giving any sign either way. If she wanted to stay out of this too. Even Tsuchiro could tell the girls were being kind in their own way. But to ask for their kindness.
じゃあ、さよならね。私は君が思ってるほど暇じゃないから。でも、最後に一つだけ。君を試すようで悪いんだけど、伝えておかないと一生恨まれそうだし。なんで、そうならないように、責任の半分を君に押し付けちゃおうかな。
Toko chickled. I laughed to show she had him in the palm of her hand from the beginning.
さっきクオンジさんに会ってきたの。彼女から電話があったでしょ。
Her tone had not changed. She sounded as cordial as before. Even so, as soon as Tsuchiro heard Alice's name, a chill went up his spine.
彼女、今ひどい状態なんだ。満足に歩けないどころか、体中の刻印が活性化して破裂寸前。まあ、ともかくだ。いつ気を失ってもおかしくない状態なんだけど、災難なことに怖い野犬に囲まれてるみたいなの。個人的な意見だけど、10分もあれば骨しか残らない結末になるでしょうね。
She spoke as she was telling a joke. It was just a joke. It was in a bad taste. However, Tsuchiro knew this was anything but. She was telling the truth. He had not heard of dogs attacking anyone in town, but the noise he heard while on the phone with Alice suddenly made sense. Dogs, a pack of them, no doubt about it. They were surrounding their prey. Why had he not turned on sooner? Squeezing the receiver in his hand, Tsuchiro cursed himself. Alice had been calling for help. Even when back into the corner, she had not wanted to involve Tsuchiro. Still, she needed help. The way she said his name so lightly.
場所は
He spoke abruptly. Even though he knew Toko was about the enemy, he was confident she would answer him. That was the reason she called.
教えてあげてもいいけど、そうした瞬間に君は私の敵になるのよ。
Tsuchiro realized what happening. He was being tasted. By ignoring Alice, he would be confirming that he did not want to get involved. But if he decided to save her,
それで場所は
Tsuchiro ignored Toko's question. Of course, he was not prepared to become an enemy, but he was even less prepared to let Alice die. He had lost his ability to think sensibly. Not that what he was particularly good about that to begin with. Still, he would not waste any time in deliberation. He would simply go with his instincts. It was one of the few times he had felt pride since coming down from the mountains.
そう。ちょっと残念だな。私は本当に君が気に入ってたのに。まあ、こうなることは分かってたけどね。場所はヤシロギの森林公園。受話器の下に地図があるでしょ。この前帰りがけにしおりを挟んでおいたから、それを参考にすること。繰り返すようだけど、10分持てば幸運。その後は1分ごとに奇跡の価値が上がるような状況よ。
As it is, Toshiro's expression turned on to one of irritation. Misaki and Yashirogi were one station apart. How long would it take to get to the station for a mention? Usually just under 12 minutes. By the time he got off the train, the actually nearly 30 minutes would have passed.
地図の上じゃ近いのに区画整理された交通手段は不便よね。けど急げば最終の電車には間に合うわ。ここどっちにしたって後悔のないようにね。
The line went dead. So sure or not, Toko had hung up the phone. He mesmerized the map and then made for the door. With no time to grab his coat, he ran out into the snow, the winter night, with the clothes he had on. All that remained in the hall was the discarded map. It showed Misaki City. It was about 10 minutes from the mansion to the nature park. 5 of you went in a straight line, but the streets were not that forgiving. 4 inches on the map, but so far much rougher in reality. The first time she crossed the town. As were not limited to her abdomen. The wolf had punched a hole straight through her back, crushing her lower vertebrae and leaving both her legs paralyzed. Was ist das Vertebrae? Nein, das ist falsch geschrieben. V-I-R T-I B-R-A-E. Ah, der Lendenwirbel. Was ist nochmal das Abdomen? Ah, der Bauch, der Unterleib. Through a magic crest, were repairing the damage. It would likely take another hour before recovery. At the very least, her heart and slender arms still worked. Although, after crawling along the ground to the foam booth, those two were failing her. As the crest healed her wounds, a searing heat ran through her body that threatened to overwhelm her. It was as if her body was no longer her own, like she was transforming into another creature. The poison rubbing through her open wounds hurt emotionally more than physically. It was used to pain, but she could not accept this disquieting feeling. Not that she had any intention to. The moment she did it would be her last. Alice wrestled with the discomfort from her abdomen and her magic crests, and with her consciously holding on by a thread, she took the phone in her hand. It was unlikely Oko would be there to pick up. Even so, with the stray dogs gathering around the booth, she had to try. It was Toshiro who picked up. Alice knew she was better off just hanging up, but his name slipped out of her mouth. After pausing and fighting with herself for some time, an image of the innocent boy came to her mind, and she hung up. Her instincts had won out. She could not let him get involved. And not just because she was innocent bystander, it was more than that. To Alice, Toshiro appeared that day because she was merely in the wrong place at the wrong time. Only the lightest of breaths passed her lips. Above her, the moon began to blur. Snow was falling again. So close, yet so far. The dogs began hurling themselves in the foam booth to the shores of hungry snarls. Funk. Funk. She took one last deep breath and closed her eyes. Glass. An unusual material for a coffin. But the girl knew, in some corner of her mind, that she had made the right choice not to ask the boy for help. Some time passed. A particular sight came into view. A field of white flowers. The clear sky was too blue. Sehen wir es in Tsukihime? The flowers so numerous, they made the field look barren. This life was dazzlingly beautiful. She wished she could look away. This was probably all thanks to Father Winter. The cold wind carried the scent of paradise, far removed, untainted by man or beast. It was a glimpse of the fields beyond winter. One could be forgiven for thinking they were the afterlife. Come to think of it, she remembered how funerals were sad, yet always beautiful. She cried. She made an unconscious whine, a sound of life. Her breathing was strained and erratic. Hollow and useless was the heart that she once used to fend off pain. It was though she was in space between disconnected body and mind. A crying woman and a silent child. High was the sky, deep was the forest, unmoving were the people. No footsteps or voice, salvation came. Who was that looking innocently up to the sky in the stillness? When she came to, Alice was going up a familiar hill. The cold night air had all frozen her hands or feet. She shook as you would expect from someone whose abdomen had been torn apart.
Shizuki.
She could barely comprehend that she was being carried slowly up Shironiska. Toshiro had Alice on his back and was silently ascending to the slope. Aww. So viel schöne Screenshots machen heute. His calm eyes seemed to be suffering from the bitter cold. He did not seem to be dressed for the time of year. Not even a coat. His exposed naked hands were ice cold.
どうしてここに
Alice asked, still slumped over his frame. She tried to move, but to no avail. The last thing she wanted was to rest her entire weight on someone else.
瞳子さんから電話があった。アリスが危ないって。青崎はともかく、アリスは意地を張りすぎだ。あの状況で助けを呼ばないのはどうかしてる。そりゃ自分が言っても何もできなかっただろうけど。
Sush spoke with a scolding tone. His eyes kept firmly ahead. His words were directed at himself rather than the girl on his back.
しずきくんは関係ないもの。
だろうね。けどこれで関係はできた。館に
Sushiro focused on climbing the hill. The slope would get steeper from here to the mansion. The thought of Sushiro climbing the steep hill with her on his back surprised Alice.
降りるわ。もう大丈夫だから。
お腹をむき出してかい。この方が少しは暖かいよ。それにアリスは薪より軽い。山じゃこの程度は朝飯前だから気にしないでくれ。まあその意味はなかったんだが。
なぜ？
俺が着いたら犬はさっさと散っていった。初めから瞳子さんはそういうつもりだったんだ。アリスをどうにかするつもりもなければ時間制限もなかった。喜ぶべきことなんだろうけど。
Sushiro said dejectedly, but he was wrong. While Toki did not want to kill Alice per se, she would not have cared if she had died. At least, that was the way Alice saw it. She did not know how long it took Sushiro to get to the park, but if he had not come, the phone booth would have collapsed, and she would have been dead. Alice did her best to suppress her thoughts and feelings. She felt silly at the thought of correcting him, and it would matter little anyway. And the thought of her trying to thank him was more painful than her open wounds.
もしかして公園からずっと。
仕方ないだろ。電車終わってたんだから。タクシーを使えばよかったんだけど、あいにく持ち合わせがなくて。ほんと、今日ほどお金の不便さを思い知った日はない。
For the first time today, Sushiro let out a sigh. There was no point taking a break. He had already traveled close to 6 miles like this. Perhaps fatigue was getting to him. Sushiro was more upset with his own weakness, the difficulty of the track.
でもそれを言うならお金の大切さ。
使えるものがあるのにお金がないだけで使えないんだから、それって不便って言わないか？
The innocence of his question made Alice briefly forget her pain. She too felt distance from the real world. But compared to boys carrying her, she felt like a regular citizen.
何かあなたらしいわ。
Alice smiled to herself. As Alice rested her head, something soft touched her cheek. The collar Ako had given him.
館に着いたら着替えるんだ。お腹の血も拭って、落ち着いたら今で話そう。瞳子さんに言わせれば、俺もこれで敵らしいから。
With those words hanging in the air, they reached the top of the hill. The gate in the wood stood before them. Beyond it, illuminated by the pale moonlight, stood the mansion. Looking up at it, the girl felt a little disappointed. A natural reaction, yet she could not place where a sentence was coming from. Once they entered the mansion, Alice slid off Sushiro's back and walked toward the west wing. The west wing was her domain. However, after only a few steps, she collapsed on the floor.
アリス!
Sushiro rushed over to her, but she raised her hand. Her gesture told him he was not to come closer. He stopped his tracks, a concerned look on his face. Her pale skin gleamed with sweat. Her expression unconsciously strained.
平気。部屋に戻るぐらいの力は戻ったわ。服を繕ってくるから。すぐに戻ってくるから。そうしたら。
The pain looked Alice's eyes, told Sushiro they would talk later. He knew he could not stop her. Sushiro reminded himself that she was the one in pain, not him.
それじゃあ、戻ってきたら話を聞かせてくれ。
Alice took a deep breath before slowly disappearing down the corridor. An uneventful 5 minutes passed. Alice returned wearing a fresh set of black clothes, but her complexion remained pallid. With a small sigh, she carefully leaned against the pillar in the foyer and slid down until she was sitting.
アリス、傷が痛むなら無理せず横になった方がいい。
She was sitting across from her on the second floor, on the cold floor.
傷はもう痛まないわ。横になる必要もない。この体の異常は七かまどを飲まされたせいだから。どう？
じゃあせめて毛布とか。
いいから気遣いはしないで。
She seemed to be telling the truth. She remembered Oko telling him that as long as Alice inside the mansion, she would be comfortable.
あったかいのならいい。それで七かまどっていうのは
薬草の一種よ。7回かまどで焼いても燃え残ることから付けられた名前で、紅葉は魔除け。普通の人には良くない程度だけど、私や青子には少し厄介ね。体内での魔力生成そのものに抵抗されてしまうから。
毒と思っていいのか？
いえ、本来は薬草よ。 今は傷を治すために魔力を使っているから苦しいけど、傷が完治すればおとなしくなるわ。魔術単純な話、7日までを消化するまで私は役には立たないだけ。
Alice paused. She decided to not say how many days it would take.
別にしずきくんが心配することじゃないわ。こんなの血が流れる程度の痛みだから。
She worked hard to keep her tone calm. Orca barely blinked when she was struck in the back. So mages must have unusual high pain thresholds. The shrew was surprised and bewildered by what she said. Wounds didn't count as long as the pain wasn't too bad. Then nothing would hurt except the injury that killed you.
分かった。話をするのは明日にしよう。今日はとにかく体を休めてほしい。
明日になっても
いいんだ、それでも。アリスはもっと体を大事にしてくれ。
He stood up.
部屋まで送るよ。それとも今で休むか？西館には入ったことはないから、アリスの部屋もわからないし。
ここでいいわ。青子を待たなくちゃいけないから。
Alice looked up the skylight. The moon had illuminated her pained face. The figure looked like it belonged to a rundown castle. Only the moon and Alice seemed more vivid than reality. Where did the strength come from? So she just stared at her. Without understanding the significance of Alice's gaze, he turned his gaze to the night sky, powerless as it was. For the third time that night, the silence was broken by the sound of the phone ringing. Before she could move, a Finch had bolted across the foyer. By the time he left, it was the weakened Alice. She had already taken the receiver in her hand.
青子。
It was the first time Sushiro had heard Alice sound concerned. Her tone was infinitely graver than when she was enduring her own pain. Alice flashed received only a short response from the voice on the other end. It was a voice more frail than Alice, like a flickering flame about to turn to smoke.
ごめん、やられた。
The phone was far from Sushiro's ears, but the words picked up were unlike her. Despite saying so little because she had no say to so little, the vibe of Oku's defeat struck Sushiro's heart. Alice silently set the receiver down. Only moments before her body had been fighting the pain, now it felt stronger than ever. It was like a scarecrow transforming into a beautiful stone statue. Seeing this, Sushiro finally understood. Alice's expression, when she looked at the moon, had come from her trying to accept an immutable reality. A day in winter, cleaning up. Beginning of the night. Forever witch. Farewell, Little Red Riding Hood. The empty village in the snow. Wir haben jetzt Kapitel 10 abgeschlossen. Und ich würde sagen, wir haben noch 2 oder 3 Kapitel vor uns. Nämlich Kapitel Wish of the Holy Night 1 und 2. Und wahrscheinlich 3, wenn es noch 3 Kapitel geben wird. Wobei ich mir das schon anschaue. Haben wir gleich noch Platz für 2 Kapitel. Und ein Kapitel 0,5 oder so. Oder 8,5 oder als 10,5 oder sowas. Aber damit beende ich den Stream für heute, weil meine Stimme geht nicht mehr so gut nach 2 Stunden laut vorlesen. Und wir werden wahrscheinlich morgen weitermachen, wenn ich die Lust dazu finde. Mit dem wahrscheinlich vorletzten Kapitel. Witch on the Holy Night. Dann mal Adios und Vierte.